we are already at 1.1 degree of global warming above pre-industrial levels. Now, for very many people, that doesn't sound like a lot, but we can already see the impact. Just this year, we've seen the terrible flooding in China, in Central Europe. You're seeing the wildfires that have raged in North America, in Australia, in the UK ourselves. This is affecting us all. And I think there is a realization actually across the world in governments that this is a shared challenge that we have to rise to. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to get almost 200 countries to agree to what I do think are a pretty historic set of commitments in Glasgow.
Hi, I'm Philippa Nuttall, Environment and Sustainability Editor at The New Statesman. Today I have the pleasure of interviewing Alok Sharma, who is the president of Cop26. Alok, thank you for being with us today.
Oh, Philippa, thank you very much for having me on. It's going to be great to have a chat around Cop26 and what comes in our presidency year.
The first thing I wanted to ask you was, we had the relative success of Cop26, and now what are your priorities for you in the next 12 months?
We set out with the intention of making sure that we kept 1.5 within reach. And I do think that on that we did deliver. We did manage to get an agreement amongst almost 200 countries over the line. And I think there is a very clear acknowledgement from countries, certainly when I visited them and spoke to them, is that climate change is an issue that doesn't respect borders and that it is a universal challenge that we all have to unite around and tackle together. That, I think, is a great cause of hope. I spent a lot of time describing myself as a shepherd-in-chief during the time leading up to COP and at COP itself. And an element of that shepherding, of course, continues during the presidency year. But I think we're sort of moving into this sort of phase of auditor-in-chief, if I can call it that, where we are going to be holding countries to account. And I don't, underestimate how tough it is going to be for us to, work with other countries and to get them to deliver on the commitments. But that's what we need to do.
Do you feel that you have the full support of the Prime Minister and the full support and the full financing you need to have a full team in place that can deliver what was agreed in Glasgow?
I think the Prime Minister is very committed to ensuring that we drive the delivery of commitments from our international partners in our presidency year. In that select committee, I talked about the size of the COP unit, the number of people that I think it would make sense to go to. But I'm confident that the UK in our presidency year will deliver a full-fat presidency, if I can put it like that. And that is an ask, actually not just from developing countries, but that's an ask from developed country partners as well. So we will be doing that. We'll be working, of course, with Egypt, which has a presidency for Cop27 as well as part of that delivery.
Before you were appointed as COP president, there were some civil society organisations that suggested that your voting record on environmental issues, climate change, was perhaps not the best, and that they were slightly surprised by your appointment. But I think there's been a change of view of you, and you were widely praised after COP by everybody. And have you had a change of vision of climate change? Do you see the world differently now from the meetings that you've had, from being at COP26 and hearing from not just the youth, but also from people from places like Tuvalu and other places which are really on the front line of climate change? I've
always been very clear that I'm not someone who's historically been known as an eco-warrior. I got this role in 2020 and I went full-time at the start of this year. But I think having had an opportunity to visit people, see the impacts on their lives on the front line of climate change, has clearly had an effect. Just to give you an example, I went to Barbuda some months ago, and they were hit by a hurricane around just over 4 years ago. And there's been some reconstruction, but actually, if you stand in the middle of the island and you look around, there is still a huge amount of destruction. Your roofs blown off, crumbling walls. And actually, I had the opportunity to speak to some of those who are still living on the island, because of course a lot of people were forced to move away. And they are really fearful about the future, because they see these climate events becoming more frequent and more ferocious. This is the irony of it, is that many of those countries which are on the front line of climate change are the ones that have done the least to create the problems that we are all facing right now. And their message was very clear. They wanted the big emitters to act and to ensure that they are doing their utmost to get to net zero by the middle of the century and to cut emissions. And it's been a emotional journey, frankly, going around talking to people. I had an opportunity a few months ago to talk to some women who are in southern Madagascar, and again, that's a country where I think very many people say it's the first example of a climate-induced drought, where they've not had rain for a number of years, and just talking to these individuals and seeing the impact and listening to the impact in their lives absolutely does have a transformative effect. The world, I think, is increasingly understanding is that we saw the IPCC report that came out in August. It said that we are already at 1.1 degree of global warming above pre-industrial levels. Now, for very many people, that doesn't sound like a lot, but we can already see the impact around the world, right? I mean, you're seeing it. Just this year, we've seen the terrible flooding in China, in Central Europe. You're seeing the wildfires that have raged in North America, in Australia. I mean, in the UK ourselves, if you talk to farmers, for instance, the impact on crop yields because of a changing climate. I mean, this is affecting us all. And I think there is a realization, actually, across the world in governments that this is a shared challenge that we have to rise to. And I think that's one of the reasons why we were able to get almost 200 countries to agree to what I do think are a pretty historic set of commitments in Glasgow.
If I analyse what's happening in the UK in terms of the net zero strategy, the UK is way off course in terms of reducing emissions. Is there a problem at home in terms of the UK actually taking the lead on this and coming forward, with a more ambitious NDC, which should be legally binding according to the Climate Change Committee, and more where the finance is going to come from in the UK?
The issue of delivery is the same one that faces every single country. And just from a sort of perspective of historic context, we have cut emissions by over 40% and yet managed to grow GDP by around 80%. When I have spoken to countries around the world, they have acknowledged that the UK does lead on this issue. And in fact, if you look over the past few years in terms of both the G20 and the G7, we have decarbonised our economy faster than other countries. Now, of course, the challenge is to ensure that in the same way that we have had great success in decarbonising the power sector, that we do that through other sectors of the economy as well. So delivery will be, a key focus for the government. But actually, in this particular role that I've had and continue to have, this is about pushing every country to do more in terms of delivery.
Would you not like to see more of a movement from, in particular, the UK Treasury to support radical climate action in the UK and to ensure that UK finances are going towards solutions for climate action and still not propping up road building or various other activities in the UK which are not in line with 1.5? The
cost of inaction is going to be far greater than the cost of action when it comes to climate change. So and also I think again if you I talked about the net zero strategy, the 10-point plan that was published when I was business secretary. This is an economic opportunity, and I think that is understood around the world that net zero is the growth story of the future. It's why we have so many businesses now signing up to going net zero in their own activities. And in fact, yesterday I had a meeting of the Cop26 Business Advisory Group, comprising CEOs of some of the biggest companies in the world. And one of them said that actually a few years ago, the idea of companies planning for net zero would have been considered slightly odd. Now, the idea of companies not planning for net zero is considered odd. So there has been a sea change in, I think, the way the business community looks at this. And I do think we've gone past this inflection point where we've got civil society, business, and governments around the world effectively singing from the same hymn sheet. My personal view is that absolutely we will get to a net zero world. The question is, do we get there fast enough?
So Egypt isn't known for being a country which allows protests. Do you think this could diminish the success? And how will you work with your Egyptian counterparts to try and have the same perhaps implication from young people from different backgrounds, from protesters, as there was at Cop26?
I very much support the right of people to carry out lawful protests. And actually, I think the pressure that comes from youth and civil society is vitally important in actually making the case to governments and businesses that we need to get a grip of climate change. And we a couple of years ago, when we first took on basically took on Cop26, we set up a civil society and youth advisory group for Cop26, a range of groups and individuals. And we would meet regularly, and by the way, that grouping will continue during our presidency year. Meet regularly, have a very frank exchange of views, and in fact, our sort of what I would certainly describe as our high ambition COP. Going into COP, we had very high ambitions. That was also partly because of the messages that we got from civil society and youth groups. So I certainly think it is vitally important that those voices are heard loud and clear. They certainly will be in our presidency year. And I think for every COP, it's important that those voices are present and people have a chance to make their views heard.
Okay, and just a very final question. Have you made any changes to your lifestyle since becoming COP president, or that you will take into the future to make your life in general more climate friendly?
So I will give you two. I'll give you two examples, not just one.
Excellent.
I think that the first is, and I've talked about this publicly, is that my younger daughter, who was the one who sent me the lovely text message, she actually, as a teenager, became vegetarian. She's now sort of vegan. And she did, when I got this role, she sat me down and said, "What are you personally going to do?" So I have given up meat. So I do not eat meat, and I'm taking that very much into the future as well. Actually, I feel a lot healthier for it. The second is that I've made a commitment that my next car will be an electric vehicle. So that is definitely going to happen.
Excellent. Well done, and long may it continue. Thank you very much for speaking to me, and good luck with the next 12 months. And if you enjoyed that interview, please go to our website where you can see more environment interviews, or subscribe to our YouTube channel.